Sound check, quick sound check. Good morning, Councillor Brar. It's Tammy from the Clerk's office. Can you unmute your mic, test your audio for us, please? Councillor Brar, I can't hear you. She's online.
Good morning.
Good morning. You're coming through clear. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's Committee of Council. As we begin today's meeting, we would like to acknowledge that we're gathering here today on the treaty territory of the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, and before them, the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Huron, and Wendat. We also acknowledge the many First Nations, Métis, Inuit, and other global Indigenous people that now call Brampton their home. We're honored to live, work, and enjoy this land. Once again, good morning all, and welcome to our meeting of Brampton's Committee of Council. All members are present here today in person, with the exception of Councillor Broad, who is online, and Councillor Medeiros and Councillor Fertini are away on regional business, so they're absent from today's meeting. Is that correct, Madam Clerk?
Through you, Chair, that's correct.
Thank you. And our next item is approval of the agenda. Do any members wish to add any business item to today's meeting? See Councillor Santos on the board.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I don't want to add anything. I just would like the notice of motion that's under legislative services to be dealt with at the same time as the RRL report, because both of those items are related to each other.
Madam Clerk will so note. Thank you, Councillor Santos. Deputy Mayor Singh.
Yeah, I have a delegation is connected to a motion that was passed last week, and that's why it's relevant. So that's it. It's actually in support as well, but a little personal touch for an issue, a house that is a problem in the area as well.
Only if he's here.
I think it'll be here.
Okay. Thank you, Deputy Mayor Singh. With that, is that all? Okay, Madam Clerk.
Through you, Chair. Revised agenda was published on Monday afternoon to include the following information. Delegation from Monsignor Owen Keenan, Parish Priest of St. Patrick's Church. Additional information was published with that item. And 6.2, a delegation from Mohit Sharma, President and CAO of Zocum ULC. The presentation's been published, and those are the only updates.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And with that, we have a motion moved by Councillor Santos to approve today's agenda. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you, and that motion carries. Do any members have a declaration of pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act for any matter to be considered on today's agenda? Seeing none, the clerk will so note for the meeting minutes. Committee, as part of our consent motion process, I will read each agenda item that is subject to the consent motion, and any member may verbally identify the item to be held for debate during the meeting. Any item not held for debate will be considered as part of the consent motion and voted on for approval. I'll start reading the relevant agenda items, and members can identify any items to be held for debate. Item 7.1, Staff Update, Government Relations Matter. In consent. Item 9.2.1, Staff Report, Tax Adjustments, Cancellations, and Reductions pursuant to Municipal Act 2001. In consent. Item 9.2.2, Staff Report, Purchasing Activity, Quarterly Report, Second Quarter 2024. In consent. Item 9.2.3, Staff Report, Active Consulting Service Contracts, Second Quarter 2024. In consent. Item 10.2.1, Staff Report, Budget Amendment, Operator, Washroom, and Lunchroom at Mount Pleasant GO Station, Ward 6. In consent. Item 10.2.2, Staff Report, Budget Amendment, Environmental Education Center, Animal Shelter, Center for Community Energy Transformation, and Post-Traumatic Growth Association, Ward 6. I'll hold that item. Item 10.2.3, Staff Report, Special Event Road Closures, Ward 4 and 10. In consent. Item 10.3.1, Minutes, Brampton School Traffic Safety Council, September 5th, 2024. In consent. Item 12.2.1, Staff Report held by Councillor Santos. That was 12.2.1, Staff Report, Residential Rental Licensing Pilot Program Implementation Update, Wards 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7. Item 12.2.2, Staff Report regarding addressing, sorry?
I'll hold that.
Okay, item 12.2.2, Staff Report regarding addressing unqualified contractors and repeat building inspections for additional rental units, held by Councillor Keenan. Item 12.2.3, held by Councillor Santos, which is Staff Report regarding review of public nuisance bylaw 136/2018 in respect to car values. Item 13.1, referred matters list, 2024 third quarter update. In consent. Item 15.1, closed session report. New Brampton Transit Facility, Ward 10, open meeting exception held by Councillor Palashi. Item 15.2, closed session report, legal advice regarding development agreements held by Councillor Palashi. Item 15.3, closed session report, construction services to accommodate office space reorganization, also held by Councillor Palashi. Madam Clerk, if you may please summarize those items held by members for consideration or not part of the consent motion prior to approval of the motion.
Through you, Chair, the following items have been held and are outside of the consent motion. 10.2.2, staff report, budget amendment, Environmental Educational Center. 12.2.1, staff report, residential rental licensing pilot program. 12.2.2, staff report addressing unqualified contractors and repeat building inspections for additional residential units. 12.2.3, staff report, review of public nuisance bylaw. And all of the closed session items, 15.1, 15.2, and 15.3.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. With that, I have a motion moved by Councillor Power to approve the consent motion. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you. That motion carries. We have no announcements today, but we do have a lot of delegations, and our first delegation item is item from Monsignor Owen Keenan, Parish Priest of St. Patrick's Church, regarding request for relief of fees and charges associated with the construction of the new St. Patrick's Church. Welcome, Monsignor Keenan. You have up to 5 minutes today.
Thank you kindly. Again, Monsignor Owen Keenan, Parish Priest at St. Patrick's, the historic little church at the corner of Mayfield Road and the Gore Road. I wish to begin, first of all, by saying thanks to each of you for your service to the community, for your hard work, what you do to make our city a terrific place to live. I realize time is short, but there must always be time to say thanks. Thank you for what you do to keep us safe, well organized and moving forward. I wish in particular to thank our Mayor, Patrick Brown, for his outstanding support, our Councillor Harkirat Singh, and our Regional Councillor Tour. Thank you for what you do, and our Commissioner of Planning, Building and Growth Management, Stephen Ganesh, and his staff. Stephen, I want to commend also Angelo Ambrico. I've never had a disappointing encounter with any of the bureaucratic or whatever offices of the city. So whatever it is you're doing, keep doing it. And I'm not saying you're good, but I submitted the request, and I've already found out that one of them has been granted. That is the right in, right out. So maybe by the time my talk is done, the second one will be granted as well. We live in hope. Okay, so I'm here on behalf of St. Patrick's, first of all, to ask for relief of all the charges and fees related to the construction of the new St. Patrick's Church, with a view to beginning construction of that new parish church no later than St. Patrick's Day, which, as you all know, is the 17th of March, and that would be in 2026. We have submitted to the city our site plan proposal. Initial comments are already coming back. Our architects are working closely with the city to move that forward. We're currently in the process of developing the working drawings so that we can go out for tender and get this thing started. Please know that every dollar that we spend on administration and taxes and levies and fees is one less dollar that we have to give to the many people who come to St. Patrick's, especially recently arrived families struggling with the cost of living. We have gladly supported 3 refugee families in the past year alone with literally tens of thousands of dollars in food, in cash, in gifts, gift cards, furnishing, clothes, and services, helping them get set up in schools and finding doctors, etc. In particular, I bring to your attention one family who came from war-torn Palestine. They lost their 5th child on their 2nd day in Canada. The child was only 40 days old. And the spiritual, psychological, let alone material needs of somebody recently come to the cold Canadian winter who lost a 40-day-old baby. And in any event, that tragedy, we're moving forward with that wonderful family. And so all of this is in addition to the regular ongoing spiritual, material, and human care that make up the day-to-day of our ministry. For your information, we've been working to raise the money for the new church for almost 10 years. The current church, the third on the site, is now 130 years old, and the growth of the area and the anticipated development will require a new, up-to-date, and bigger facility to meet the needs of today and tomorrow. Your support for this request will go a very long way to help meeting that need. We have lost the original architect and our beloved Father Vito Marciliano in the last 4 years, both to a heart attack. COVID has delayed the project and jacked up costs. To note, the anticipated cost of the new building has gone up more than 110% in the last 6 years. And so your support is crucial. I know it's a big ask, and I'm very grateful for your consideration. I would ask you to consider the relief from the development fees and submission fees and charges associated with this building, not as an expense charged to the debits of the city, but rather as an investment that will enable us to build sooner, so as to continue and indeed greatly increase our outreach to the community. I'm aware that there's a policy of support through relief for development fees and charges and such for places of worship. I'm pleased to assure you that continuing the now almost 200-year tradition of St. Patrick's Parish, Mass was first celebrated in this area in 1826, that we ask of this city, which we as parishioners also support, in view of being better able to build up our community, your kind consideration for this, especially as we seek to serve its most vulnerable members. I had asked, and it was on the agenda, to speak also to the possibility of a right-in, right-out. You'll see on the northwest corner, the upper left, I've been informed by Mr. Ganesh that that has already been approved with some slight modifications. That will make our presentation before the Region of Peel much more easy. And thank you for your excellent work, Mr. Commissioner, in obtaining that and reviewing that so quickly. If any of the council members are interested, I have the traffic impact studies, but it already having been approved, I don't know that that would be necessary. If there are any questions. I have 5 seconds, shameless plug. Our fundraising gala is on October 25th. You may find information about where, when, how at St. Patrick's BR, St. Patrick's Brampton BR at archtoronto.org. We'd love to see you there. Questions, thoughts, concerns?
Thank you, Monsignor Keenan. I do have a couple of speakers on the board here. First up, Councillor Palashi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Monsignor. I ask that maybe you share the gala information with members of council. We can push it out on social media.
Happily, thank you.
That'd be good. So I think we try and keep all faiths that are growing, treat them all the same. So would like to hopefully support. I think Mayor Brown's on next. Any kind of deferral back to staff to look at the development charges, application fees, in way of if there are any recreation amenities, if the prayer rooms. I know we don't DC prayer rooms. So what other opportunities are there that we can help with? Also, in the past, we've facilitated, I guess, some discussions around providing longer lengths of time at zero to no interest for repayment of any fees that are associated with that. So if that can be looked at as well. But as per our procedural bylaw, your delegation here today, the only thing we can do is send it back to staff and ask for a staff report. So I look forward to that. And I'll ask that Mayor Brown is moving that staff report, and I'm happy to support it. Thank you very much for coming today.
Thank you, Councillor Palashi and Mayor Brown.
Thank you, and Monsignor Keenan, thank you for being here today. Obviously, St. Patrick's has a hallowed history in our city, and it's not lost to me that this was the vision and the dream of Father Vito, who was beloved. I had a chance to go to his celebration of life. I don't think I've seen a larger celebration of life anywhere. The amount of families that he obviously meant so much to in our city, and frankly across the GTA was astonishing. So many people shared stories about how he helped them through moments of adversity. So you have big shoes to fill as you carry on his dream and legacy. I had the chance to go to the gala last year. It really is a phenomenal fundraising event. I know Councillor Keenan was there. I don't think he's a long-lost cousin of yours, but
no, my family tree is more like a family shrub.
Yeah, nonetheless, I know he's a supporter as well. And I know Councillor Singh and Tor and myself had a chance to meet with your committee, and hopefully the planning process has been quick and smooth, and we're excited to see this come into fruition. Councillor Pellecci is correct. You know, we, on a delegation, can simply request a staff report, but maybe on a very high level, if I could ask Steve Ganesh just to say how Brampton helps places of worship through the building process and the exemptions that exist.
Certainly. Through you, Chair to Mayor Brown, certainly Brampton is working with all places of worship to not only expedite timelines for construction, but look at where we can provide some relief, recognizing that places of worship don't have the type of cash flows that other builders typically do. At a high level for this particular project, site plan application fees would be around $82,000. The building permit fee, approximately $60,000. And the amount of the city development charges applicable only to those, the non-prayer areas, would be about $390,000. So at a high level, again, I need to confirm some of these numbers. We're looking at about a potential relief of $532,000. But certainly we would come back with a report on this, and then any implications it would have for future requests of this kind.
Yeah, I think my question more, Steve, was the waiver that we do for the prayer areas, what does that account for on a rough level? Like, because that's not something all cities do. So the fact that we waive that fee, what is that waiver? What's the value of that waiver?
Through the chair, the Development Charges Act does not actually have a fee associated with the prayer area itself. It's the non-prayer areas. I'd have to work with finance staff to find out exactly what that waiver amount would be. But certainly that's something we can report back to.
But for his clarity, the prayer area is exempt from development charges.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry, Commissioner of Corporate Service had his hand up too.
Yeah, if I can, through the chair. For the city, the DC charges for places of worship are exempt, with the exception of any commercial areas. But the region has a different formula for that. For this is just strictly the city's DCs.
Okay. So just the clarity there is that the city exempts the prayer areas, not the commercial areas, but the region has their own development charges.
Right. Okay. Well, thank you. I mean, we're not an income generator. You know what they say about the priesthood. The pay is poor, but the retirement package out of this world.
Thank you so much for being here. We look forward to being as supportive as we can.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Brown.
And I'm happy to move that staff report.
Thank you. So the motion that we see on the screen here, moved by Mayor Brown. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you. That motion carries. Once again, thank you, Monsignor Keenan, for your delegation. Our next delegation item is item 6.2, a delegation from Mohit Sharma, President and CEO of Zochem ULC, regarding Zochem ULC 50-year celebration in Brampton. Welcome, Mohit. You have up to 5 minutes.
Thank you very much. Appreciate you all for your time today and all your service that you provide to the community. It's on behalf of course, just myself, but also the team at Zochem. So I've just put together a few slides just to outline to everyone the happy occasion this year, which is Zochem is celebrating 50 years in Brampton. We've been located just north of Steeles off the 410 for those 50 years. It's been a growth 50 years, I'd have to tell you, from a standpoint of technology and human resource, and as far as implementation of sustainability within the community, as well as in the factory itself. If I take you through the presentation, really the one thing we stand on, just to give you some background, is we're just over 4,700 days without a lost time injury. That's not credit to me, that's credit to the team. So what we stand on really is EH&S, which environment, health, and safety is really much aligned with what the city's doing in this day and age. So that's Zochem's baseline. We've been an extremely sustainable leader in terms of the industry, and pretty much trying to branch out Brampton out globally. So we were recently, the team was recently rewarded with a EcoVadis Gold Medal. Just to give you an idea of what that is, that's a global sustainability platform that assesses 130,000 companies across the globe. Zochem finished in the top 5%. So, and that's just not about environment, that's labor and ethics, that's sustainable procurement, as well as other pillars that are key to growing our community and growing Canada on the global, as a global industrial manufacturer leader, so I hope. And so part of the reason I'm here is just to share a little bit of the 50 years, what we're doing with the community, who we're working with. So a lot of the partners we work with, it's not just our customers, it's not just our suppliers, it's the people who make this community a strong community and better people than maybe us today. And so we work with a lot of the charitable foundations, such as Knights Table, Regeneration on the food bank and personal product side. We work with the Tiger Jeet Singh Foundation on the Miracle on Main to ensure that no kid doesn't see a toy during the holiday season. And we also work with community service and community peace promoters such as Rotary International. So when you put all that together and then tie that with our exemplary sponsorship of the Brampton Excelsiors Lacrosse Club, because we do want to grow the leaders of tomorrow within our community, that's been a big contributor to what Zochem is. And so when I think about Zochem's first 50 years, why I'm here to share this with you, and of course the great audience here, is that we want to have a next 50 years. I may not be here to see it, but I hope someone will. And the idea behind that is what growth opportunities we have identified. So one of the biggest things that I put out to the municipal support that we've had a wonderful support from the City of Brampton, straight from Mayor Patrick Brown to the local councillors, as well as some MPP support. However, we still have a lot of red tape that we need to get through in terms of maintaining a competitive position against import pressures. And those import pressures can be dialed down to human resource standards, employment standards. They can be defined as environmental standards when you compare what we have to do here locally compared to other nations. And one of the other biggest items is just the straight quality of the product and the impact it has on the greater good and the social impact. So my closure to you is you wouldn't know that the type of zinc oxide which we produce makes a safer, more environmentally friendly tire than another type of zinc oxide. It's not something that would be top of mind. It's not something that you would go and ask your tire seller when you go and buy your set of 4. So that's something that we're working to promote. That's on us. We want to make sure that there's a realization out there that the community is aware that there is a difference between one to the other and with the impact it might have to putting your kids in the car or your loved ones in terms of what that could mean in terms of performance. But unfortunately, that stuff does come in with a cheaper price, with lower standards, and even people within Ontario will buy that product versus the product that would be more socially responsible. So that's why I wanted to start with that whole platform of our safety record, our sustainability excellence, and our community presence, because it's consistent with what we do, and we look forward for any support and help and stuff that I would be happy to drive, but look for local municipal support with the, potentially even with the Ministry of Environment and Ministry of Transportation, as we try and educate them further on the impact that these decisions can make on future employment here at Zochem. And there's some facts within the presentation there for you to review, and happy to take any questions as you might have them. But most importantly, I really appreciate your time today.
Thank you, Mr. Sharma. I think that's got to be one of the most effective, efficient delegations I've seen. Mayor Brown, you're up first.
Thank you, Councillor Tour, and thank you for being a tremendous corporate citizen. I've had a chance to visit your facility twice with our economic development team, and it's great to see how you're creating good jobs with employees who have stayed for a very long time. There's certainly a sense of family there, where you've created a great workplace. I want to thank you for always stepping up for charity initiatives, whether it's the food drive, whether it's the toy drive, whether it was our charity golf tournament this summer. Right. You've been a tremendous supporter of any cause in the city, and it does not go unnoticed, and I look forward to attending the 50th anniversary coming up on, I guess that's September 26th.
Next Thursday, yeah.
Yeah, so congratulations, and we look forward to continuing to see your growth in Brampton. And I guess I just asked the question for you to give an opportunity to elaborate. Is this a growth market? Is there an opportunity for you to continue to grow this sector in Brampton? You found a very sort of niche area with that product. But for those that don't know, and I know when I did my tour, there was actually a child's book explaining that this is almost in everything. Right. So maybe just a little high-level 30-second answer for why this is a growth market and why there's more jobs for Bramptonians in this sector.
Sure, absolutely, and thank you for giving me the time to do so. So as far as applications go, I did mention tires, which is a durable good that we all tend to use, and obviously goes by based on miles driven. But other applications where there is growth is agriculture. So fertilizer and animal feed directly uses zinc products, zinc oxide being one of them. With the fact that we continue to become more urbanized, grow, and beat up some arable land, whatever arable land is left needs additional crop yield, and it's actually the zinc component that's critical in that. So as the population grows, as well as there are less arable land available, you're going to need more zinc within every square foot of farmland that's out there for crops and other products such as that, and as well as the energy storage movement. So lithium is the big mover for batteries. There is a flammability concern with lithium, so as much as cars are putting it on there, a hospital's backup power, you're not going to be able to evacuate very well if there is a fire concern. So zinc and vanadium and nickel are coming out as the three alternatives, which wouldn't create a flammable concern. So that's another up-and-coming market. So there is growth there. There's obviously the regular GDP growth, but then as far as a blue sky story, I would put the energy storage as well as the additional education on health and wellness on the fertilizer side as the two bigger components.
Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor Brown, and I'd say thank you, Mr. Sharma, as well for that delegation. I would actually propose that if I'll move a motion to refer this delegation to economic development staff. I know they have a really good working relationship with you.
They do.
I've missed the opportunity on visiting your site the last time. I think I was out of town. But I will refer this to economic development staff to see ways in which we can further help you as a municipality. Like Mayor Brown said, and your presentation itself, you do a lot for the community. You're such a good civic partner that we have here. We always rely on you to give back to the community. So anything we can do to further help your business and bring more jobs into our city or support the existing jobs, would be very happy to do that, so that, Brampton's turned 50, Zokum's turned 50, and the next 50 years together, I think, both the city and Zokum will grow a lot. So anything we can do to be part of that journey, happy to support it. So I'll move that motion forward, and I request support from my colleagues on this. So motion here on the screen, moved by myself, to refer this to economic development staff to investigate further means of support. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you. That motion carries. And once again, thank you, Mr. Sharma, for your delegation.
Much appreciated, and a tour is always available, so don't be shy if you miss it.
Will do. Thank you. Tour is always available. Our next delegation item is item 6.3, a delegation from Bhavan Ubi and Vijay Singh, co-founders of the Third Space Music, regarding Moksha by Third Space, happening at the Rose Theatre on October 4th, 2024. Welcome, Vijay.
Thank you, Chair and members of council. I also have a video that I'd love to show if the city clerk can play that. Yep. Maybe we can save that for the end then? Yep. Okay. Chair, members of council, good morning. My name is Vijay Kumar. I'm joined by my co-founder, Bhavan Ubi, as well. He's sitting in the audience here. In addition to doing government relations at the Brampton Board of Trade, and I just want to thank J. Paul Massey Singh for allowing me to steal some company time to do this. But I'm also a devoted resident of the city of Brampton. I was born and raised here. I'm a lifelong admirer of the arts. I was part of the founding advisory panel for what was then called ACETA, now called the Brampton Arts Organization. I had the opportunity to work with passionate advocates for the arts, such as our founding council rep, Councilor Rowena Santos, more recently, Councilor Tour, and I thank you both for your advocacy for the arts. I've also learned tabla, the drum of North India, right here in Brampton. And when the Rose Theatre opened in 2006, it was a dream of not just mine, but my brothers and sisters in music, to showcase the genre that I love so dearly on the grandest stage that the city has to offer. And I'm happy to say thanks to the support of Brampton on Stage and our dedicated partners, that dream is now coming to fruition. I'm honored to invite members of council, and everyone in this room, frankly, to Moksha by Third Space, a pioneering Indian classical music concert scheduled for the 4th of October at the Rose Theatre. Doors will open at 6:30. The performances will start at 7:30. This event is set to be a landmark occasion in our city, with world-class musicians flying in from around the world, India, Australia, Pakistan, Europe, the United States. It will be a celebration of music that not only represents the diversity and the heritage of the Indian subcontinent, but also the diversity within Brampton itself. So, this evening will feature an exceptional lineup of artists. We have Sukhvinder Singh, who is one of India's most dynamic percussionists. He has mastery over both the tabla and the jori, which is the instrument of the Sikh tradition. His performance will feature a 13.5 beat time cycle, which just showcases the complexity of Indian classical rhythm. Irshad Khan has been called the Mozart of Indian classical music. At just 13 years old, he performed at prestigious venues such as the Queen Elizabeth Hall in London and the Indian All-Night Concert at the Proms. His family also traces back to the 16th century Mughal courts. And finally, Shahbaz Hussain, who is one of Pakistan's greatest tabla players. He has earned accolades such as the Son of Lahore Award. Each of these artists are from a different place in the subcontinent. Sukhvinder is from Punjab, India. Irshad is from Bengal. Shahbaz is from Pakistan. All of these artists have their own perspective on how the partition shaped their music. And that's exactly the theme for this evening, uniting the partitioned lands of the subcontinent through the ancient music of the subcontinent. That's all I really have. I just wanted to invite all of you, and I thank you for your attention. We look forward to sharing this extraordinary and momentous occasion with you to celebrate the rich tapestry of our diverse cultural heritage. And I would be honored with the presence of Brampton City Council at this event. Thank you once again to Brampton on Stage, and I'd love to play the video now. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, Vijay, for that delegation. I just want to say, I have Councillor Santos and Deputy Mayor Singh on the board, but just quickly, I hope people realize the amount of talent that you're bringing to Brampton. This is incredible. I've never seen this before at this scale. We always have classical artists come and perform in our city. We have a history of that, but the incredible talent that you're putting up together on stage here is truly incredible. I can appreciate this as somebody that hated going to my tabla class. My mom forced me to go to it all the time, but I'm glad she did. I look forward to being here, to experiencing this. My wife and I will be here. I know Deputy Mayor Singh and his wife will be here. We're going to be on a double date on this. Thank you for bringing this to City of Brampton. I can't thank you enough, honestly, for putting this together. I will be, I think we all will be spreading the word. I hope the tickets are not all sold out. Jocelyn looks nervous about that, so I think they're all sold out. They're almost all sold out. So if you're listening to this, please do go purchase those tickets. And with that, I'll pass it on to Councillor Santos.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Vijay, so proud of you and you expressing your other passion, which is arts and particularly music. And as a wannabe musician, I guess I'll call it, I know, and huge advocate of the arts, it is really difficult to play the tabla. Just so folks know, the tabla is very difficult. I think the guitar is hard to play, but the tabla is hard to play. And when I have seen you and your band play in at parties, at house parties in the basement, and listening to the level of intimacy and love of the classical Indian music, the tabla is not just complicated. All the instruments related to Indian classical music is so complicated to play and bring it all together. And you all do so, when I've seen it, without even looking at the notes in front of your face. And I don't even know how you do that. So the level of appreciation I have for this art form, which is Indian classic music, is incredible. And you mentioned this to me many months ago, and I said, of course I'm going to be there. I've been waiting for this moment, and time flies. And as per what Councillor Tour has just shared, the lineup that you have here is incredible. And I'm looking forward to this performance on our stage in Brampton to celebrate the diversity of artists we have, but also to support you, VJ, and what you have brought to our city, not just in terms of BOW and being on the board of BOW, but also personally being on the stage performing yourself. So thank you, VJ.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Santos, and once again, thank you, Vijay, for that excellent delegation. I'll just also add a quick comment. While I look at this picture here and the lineup that you have, this is what the world would be if the British hadn't come to India and divided India and Pakistan and Bengal and created all those problems. But this is incredible that you're bringing everybody together right here in Brampton. And with that, I'll have a motion moved by Councillor Santos to receive this delegation. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries. Our next item is item 6.4, a delegation from Hemi Bandari, Brampton resident, regarding proposed acquisition of a cul-de-sac on the north corner of Castlemore Road and Clarkway Drive, Ward 10. Welcome, Mr. Bandari. You have up to 5 minutes.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tanish Bandari. I'm here on behalf of Hemi Bandari. I just want to say thank you for all the support and everything you guys do for the city of Brampton. It really means a lot for someone who's been a resident and a citizen of Brampton. Thank you for the opportunity to present this ongoing project at 10015 Clarkway Drive in Brampton. It is a mixed-use development designed to enhance the commercial landscape of the area. Next slide, please. This 1.3-acre site will serve as a vibrant commercial hub. Our vision is to create a dynamic hub that provides essential services to local residents and professional office environments for businesses, all while fostering community growth and interaction. Our current land has 2 entrances, one from Castlemore Road and the other from Old Castlemore and Fines Avenue. The entrance from Old Castlemore has now been closed off due to new residential apartments being built next to our project. The builder has taken this access, leaving us with now 1 entrance and creating a lot of congestion with traffic. And due to this, we're proposing an acquisition of the cul-de-sac. Next slide, please. This is the current plan. In the last picture, you can see how there's 2 apartment buildings that are being built. These buildings have taken over our second entrance, and this was our main entrance from Castlemore Road. Our main objective here is kind of to get a second entrance, so we're able to reduce the traffic congestion and kind of provide the community with a better commercial hub. Next slide, please. We are proposing the acquisition of the cul-de-sac at the north corner of Castlemore and Clarkway Road Drive. This land has no future use, nor does it have any benefit to the city. If we're able to acquire it, we can take away the city's responsibility of taking care of this land, and we're able to add a second entrance to our development since our original access was taken away. This would allow us to address several key challenges and improve the overall functionality of the development. The first benefit that this has is the traffic flow improvement. Currently, there's only 1 entrance and exit to the plaza. This causes congestion and delays, especially during peak hours. By acquiring the cul-de-sac, we're able to produce a second entrance and exit on Castlemore Road, significantly improving traffic flow for both customers and local residents. This will reduce bottlenecks and create a smoother driving experience for everyone using the area. The second is the parking expansion. Additional space from cul-de-sac will enable us to expand parking. This is crucial for attracting more businesses and accommodating increased customer traffic. By offering more parking spots, we can ensure the development meets the needs of both small businesses and large. This improvement also reduces the risk of cars overflowing into nearby residential streets, thereby enhancing the overall convenience and accessibility of the plaza. Next slide, please. There's also a lot of economic growth with this acquisition. The commercial plaza can support a greater number of commercial units, creating new opportunities for local businesses. This expansion will contribute directly to the local economy by bringing more businesses into the neighborhood, encouraging entrepreneurship and increasing job creation both during and after the construction. There's also enhanced accessibility. The additional entrances and exits will ease traffic congestion, making the area more accessible to residents and visitors alike. This aligns with the city's goals of improving transportation, efficiency, and connectivity. Another benefit to the city is the boost to the local economy. Increasing business activity will lead to a higher tax revenue for the city while providing local residents with more shopping and service options close to home. This reduces the need for residents to travel long distances for everyday needs. The current site plan does not have any commercial hub that's coming in that area. They're all residential developments, all the way from Rutherford in Vaughan down to Mountain Ash in Brampton. There's no commercial hub on that side of the road. Residents need to travel extra distances just to make simple store purchases. The last benefit is supporting sustainable growth. This expansion allows for more businesses to establish themselves with the development, providing the community with essential services in one convenient location. Next slide, please. As of now, we are in the process of obtaining approvals for the zoning bylaw amendment and awaiting a public meeting. The tertiary plan has now been completed and approved, and once we secure support for the cul-de-sac acquisition, we will proceed with the site plan approval. In conclusion, we respectfully request the city's cooperation in moving forward with the acquisition of the cul-de-sac. We believe the acquisition is crucial to maximizing the potential of the project, ensuring that it serves the needs of the community and aligns with the city's development goals. Thank you, and I welcome any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Bhandari. You have Deputy Mayor Singh on the board.
Thank you for coming to delegate. Have you had any conversations with staff so far about acquiring this piece?
No, not yet.
Okay, so is that what you're asking, to have those, I guess, formally?
Yeah, have a formal meeting so we can bring that discussion for the
Okay.
acquisition.
Okay. I'm okay to refer this, but I'll wait for Council Pelletier to make a comment.
Thank you, and Councilor Palashi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's a difficult one. You're here today because you want to purchase City of Brampton lands, which is in the proper location, but this really is a planning matter, and you should be at planning. I'm confused as to why you may think that it'll ease traffic congestion on Old Castlemore. If your thought is extending Old Castlemore all the way to Clarkway?
So Old Castlemore is actually being closed off. Currently, there is an entrance from Fines, from Castlemore Fines to Old Castlemore.
Yes.
That's been closed off, and now that leaves us with only one entrance on Clarkway Drive.
Okay.
So there's one entrance and exit now,
Yes.
and anyone who wants to enter the commercial place has to come through Clarkway Drive.
Right.
And
They're
there's,
not going to, the commercial plaza does not have access onto Clarkway?
it only has access to Clarkway, not to Castlemore. But right now, it has access to Castlemore.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
Because of the new buildings that are being built over there,
yep,
that entrance to Castlemore has now been closed off.
okay. And essentially what you want to do is purchase the property and have access onto
Castlemore.
Clarkway?
Onto Castlemore Road.
Onto
Because we already
Castlemore.
have current, if you can go back to this.
You have access on Fines
Yeah.
to Castlemore. That's being closed off.
Yeah.
You want to be able to put access through the purchase back onto Castlemore
Back onto
to get a
Castle-
second access.
Exactly.
Okay. This area, I think you're too close to the intersection, so you don't have a full move, so it'll be right in, right out only. Are you okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. This is the exact opposite of everything we hear of trying to reduce the traffic. What you're doing is providing a cut-through for not only yourselves living in the area, which is great, but everybody else that wants to try and get away from any of the congestion. Usually residents would rather do it the opposite way. If there's an access coming, they want it closed off because that reduces the amount of traffic. But I'm interested to hear what else is kind of what you're thinking, and happy to support, a meeting with yourselves, staff, the area councilors, of course, if they want to kind of figure this out. Yeah, it's interesting. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Palashi. Just quickly on that, I know Old Castlemore, what Mr. Bandari is talking about, it being closed off there, because it's gonna have an access onto Highway 50. That's gonna be built by the industrial landholders around that area. So I think it's more appropriate if this is a discussion with planning staff to see what the possibilities is with what they're proposing, and I guess if that be a report back to us. So if that's the motion Deputy Mayor Singh is putting forward, I think.
Or,
Deputy Mayor
I'll
Singh?
leave it up to you. We can also receive it and just set up a meeting. If that's,
Yeah.
Do you have a preference?
Through the chair,
Instead of doing the whole report back?
certainly be my preference to receive it, work with planning
Yeah,
staff
okay.
through the normal
You can,
process,
touch
and
base
bring the
with them
findings
and-
back as
yeah.
part of a formal recommendation rather than a separate report, but we will
Okay.
take
Yeah,
direction
that's
from
fine.
council.
Yeah, that'd be a
Okay.
better way.
So you
Okay.
just get your his contact out right after.
Okay,
Thank you so
excellent.
much.
Thank you for that delegation, and with that, there's a motion moved by Deputy Mayor Singh to receive this delegation. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you, that motion carries. Our next item is item 6.5, a delegation from Emmanuel Adebola, Executive Director of A&E Global, regarding A&E Global and Black Empowerment Summit and Gala, October 19th, 2024. Welcome, Mr. Adebola. You have up to 5 minutes.
Good morning, sir. Good morning, everyone. All protocols observed. Can we get 3 minutes? 3 additional minutes? Is that possible? And I'll tell you why. We have Zobo in the house, and I promised her that for the Zobo, we'll give her a grand entry.
Could we see that at the 5-minute mark?
Okay?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. So, hello, everyone. My name is Emmanuel Adebola. I'm the Executive Director of A&E Global, which is a social enterprise that facilitates entrepreneurship development for the Black community. We started out focusing on Nigerians, which I am, but we realized that in a country like Canada that has great opportunities, focusing on your own country can be limiting. So we expanded to focus on the Black community in Canada. And we're privileged to have come here before. Mayor Brown and some of you supported us at an event we had in June. But we're here for something different. On the 19th of October, as you've said, sir, we're hosting a first-of-its-kind Black Empowerment Summit and Gala Dinner Night. It's going to be fantastic. It's holding at the Mississauga Convention Center, which incidentally sits on the border of Brampton and Mississauga. I don't know why they get it. How I found out was that Mayor Brown has a parking lot there. Did you? So I knew that there's a shared ownership. What's going to happen is that we're going to be hosting the Honorable Minister of Small Business, Recky Valdez. She'll be speaking at the event, giving a keynote address, and she's the #1 sponsor of small business. So we felt it was important to let people get to see that. The second hour, we would have 4 councillors of Nigeria, of Black descent, who will be speaking on empowering people. Some of them won councillorship in areas where there are 97 or 98% Caucasians. So we want to share with people, how do you focus on value to your community? And then we'll have a transition, and then we'll have the gala dinner itself from 7 to 10 p.m. We'll have mayors. Mr. Brown is still considering whether he'll be there. I want him to be there. He thinks he'll be in Kenya, but I think he'll be there. There are other people coming from different other mayors, councillors, MPs, and MPPs will be there. It's going to be a fantastic evening. So why are we here? Last week, Monday, I want to commend Brampton. Brampton is leading in 2 things, in my view. Economic development. You're doing fantastically above every other city I've seen, because I'm an economic development consultant for the Black community. So you're well advanced in the 3 areas, investment attraction, those. But also in supporting the Black community, you're doing a fantastic job. And there was no better experience of that than what I saw last week, Monday. Thanks to Garnet Manning, Candace, Michael Kule, Morris, Uche. It was beautiful to see everybody together, and I want to thank you for what you did. But why I'm here is that based on that inspiration, I thought, why don't we partner, or why doesn't the city of Brampton partner with us to sponsor some people with tickets for this event? You know why? Because you can't meet a group of needs of people you don't understand. The Black community is the 4th largest racialized demographic group in Canada. Only 2.1% of businesses in Canada are owned by the Black community. So these are invitations to give you the opportunity to partner with us on different levels, either for your economic development team, wonderful councillors that I see, or people that you select based on your own criteria. So that's why we're here. We want partnership, because we don't just want you to watch it on TV, we want you to be part of the action. Thank you. So, sir? No. I decided to spare it. Rather than the video, I will do this. So I will spare the time. No video anymore. It's just going to be ground entry. So do I have the 3 minutes then?
You still have a minute and a half left.
Okay, so let's permit me, because it's impromptu, because I was so impressed by the gentleman who spoke 2 minutes ago. I want to outdo him as a showman. Let's welcome Mosun Afolabi. Let's go. This is Afrobeats. Afrobeat. So Mosun Afolabi is our membership director, and she's the CEO of Mom Sorrel Zobo Drink, which is fantastic, which you taste. How are they?
I see no competition, and I mind my business.
Ayodemi is a member of our board, and we're very proud of what he's doing. Thank you very much. There's a gentleman I need to talk about. His name, you know him as Maurice Imadu. Did you know that Maurice Imadu is one of the most fantastic showmen in our community? We're very proud of him. We know him as MC Maurice, and we're very happy with what you're doing. We thank you for that. I don't know if you know, I don't know if it's public knowledge, but we're fantastic. We have Michael Cole as well. Michael Cole is doing a fantastic job, and I didn't know we could cover this in 5 minutes. That's it. Thank you very much.
Thank you once again for that
Thank
delegation. Mayor Brown.
Thank you for coming forward. Maybe we refer this to our events staff and the Black Economic Empowerment Unit to report back to council on how we can be supportive.
Thank you, sir.
And of course, for events, we have an Advanced Brampton Fund that supports events that are taking place in the city of Brampton, but there are application timelines for that. But obviously, Brampton is proud of our mosaic and proud to support events, and we continue to have such a wide variety of events. It's there's no weekend that is a slow weekend in the city of Brampton. So happy for you to be part of that, and we'll make sure that staff reach out to you on what opportunities may be applicable.
Thank you, Mayor Brown and Councillor Santos.
Thanks so much, through you, Mr. Chair, and I support the referral to staff, and just want to say thank you for the very lively delegation that almost had me grooving in my seat. Quick question, how did you get the music to just suddenly start playing for your delegation? Because I want to use it when I start talking about the RRL report.
It's available for the cost of 10 tickets.
Thank you again.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councillor Santos, and once again, thank you for that delegation. I have a motion moved here by Mayor Brown to refer this delegation to staff to report back on options for supporting this delegation.
Thank you very much. We appreciate the time. Keep doing good work.
All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you, and that motion carries. Once again, thank you for that delegation.
Yes, you can clap. You can clap.
I believe our next item was in consent. Oh, sorry. My apologies. My apologies, yeah. Our next delegation is a delegation from Joltvinder Sodhi, Vales of Humber resident, our resident in wards 9 and 10, regarding use of Airbnb short-term rental homes as wedding venues. Welcome, Mr. Sodhi. You have up to 5 minutes for this delegation.
Good morning, Chair, members of the Council, and Mayor Brown and Deputy Mayor Mr. Singh. Simple request is we are taking an immediate action to discontinue Airbnb rental in the Vales of Humber community. The properties has been rented for events such as weddings, which have led
Sorry, 1 second. Councillor Kalashi?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and sorry, Jotvinder, and I respect you very much. And normally I wouldn't cut you off like this, but I need to understand you providing any kind of thoughts on Committee of Adjustment items, I think is a little bit inappropriate. I need to understand and just get through you, Mr. Chair, to the clerk's office. Is there any kind of code of conduct that the Committee of Adjustments, if they state anything with respect to items that may be coming to C of A?
Sorry, before I pass it to Madam Clerk, Deputy Mayor Singh has something to say.
Maybe the way the delegation was started, that's why there's confusion. It's actually a particular house right across from it. It's not a COA. It's not in front of COA. It's on Airbnb and it's being used for weddings. So it's not a COA application, but I think because you started with the overall policy about Airbnb,
So
that's where your
Jacques Bender,
hesitation is coming
very
from.
good every
Which I
time he
understand
comes.
as well.
Every time he
But
comes
he's
as a
gonna
resident?
talk about a specific case that he's been calling the 311 about.
I
so
think
Okay.
I haven't done the
So
delegation for a while.
let's narrow it to that.
I'm learning back again my skills. I'm gonna sharpen my tools, and definitely I could
It's
answer.
about a specific case, which he'll get.
Yeah,
Maybe
this
stick
is-
to the
This
specific.
is just
Yeah.
a specific, that's why I use the, Vales of Humber and the delegation, for example, now we have started the discussion before I proceed with the next few words. The signatures are only from residents.
Yeah,
They have
so-
with the postal code number.
Yeah, talk
So-
specifically about the case
Yes.
that we've been calling the 311.
Definitely.
Thank you,
So I'm going to start back again. We are taking immediate action to discontinue Airbnb rental in the Vales of Humber community. The property has been rented only for the events such as weddings and late night parties, which led a disturbed late night parties which loud music, numerous parking violations, unsafe conditions. These problems have caused significant disturbance in the neighborhood, affecting the quality of life of local residents. By ending Airbnb rental, we aim to address these issues and restore peaceful and safe environment in the community. Just on a side note, I think one of the tax contribution for that Vales of Humber area is huge, in millions to the city. And we have requested, I delegated in the past years back for having a traffic lights on Gordon Randall Drive and the Mayfield Road, which is a high traffic road. And cross the street, I understand this is not part of the Brampton side of it, but on Caledon side, there are illegal truck yards across our homes, causing somebody lost a life. So these are the concerns we have. We request to look at the overall development.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sodi. I have a few speakers on board. First up, Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thanks for coming in for your delegation. And when it comes to Airbnbs, I struggle with them even being allowed in the city of Brampton only because we're not a touristy neighborhood. I understand it in Niagara Falls and so on and so forth, where people might come, want to spend a night and leave. I'm not sure that it serves the purpose here in the city of Brampton. And in conversations with residents and other councillors, I know Councillor Santos and Councillor Vincente have an issue in their neighborhood, and it came at the last meeting. It was discussed, and we'll be expecting some stuff back from staff. And in that process, someone from Airbnb reached out to me, part of the corporation, the Airbnb, I'm not sure exactly what their title is, to set up a meeting because apparently they have tools available, maybe for the municipality or them themselves, on how to deal with people that aren't using the Airbnbs in the correct way. So I would be happy to pass along that information, or when I'm having that meeting, have you attend, as well as any other residents that are having issues, to see what those tools may be. But thank you so much for coming in today in your delegation.
Yes, on a side note,
Sorry,
there-
Mr. Sodi, just if we can speak through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Keenan, for those comments. We will, if I can just finish all the list of speakers to ask questions,
Please,
and then we'll I'll give you the opportunity to answer. At the same time, I just want to correct for the record too, Brampton does have a tourism office. We do welcome tourism. We may not be Niagara Falls, but we do get a lot of tourism throughout the year. Councillor Santos, you're up next.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. Hi, Jatinder. Good to see you. Thanks so much for delegating today. Your delegation is actually very timely. So last week at the council meeting, we did pass a motion asking staff to report back on situations regarding regulations on Airbnb, specifically dealing with the issues that you're highlighting today. So I'll move to refer your delegation back to staff as part of that process as we're reviewing how to appropriately deal with the short-term rentals, keeping also in mind
that we're having the same issues with longer-term rentals, and we're also dealing with those issues through the residential rental licensing program. So in many ways, the residential rental market, whether that's short-term or long-term in Brampton, and I'll be talking about this later as well, we are trying our very best to use all the possible tools within our jurisdiction to address a lot of these challenges. So while you're delegating before us today, Jackvinder, and I know how powerful your voice is, particularly on social media, and I know that you know our colleagues in the provincial and federal government as well, I strongly encourage you, since there might be a provincial or federal election coming up, to also put pressure on the MPPs and the MPs, and don't let them try to pass the buck on the municipality, because solving a lot of these challenges regarding to residential rental units in our community is, for the most part, a downloaded impact on the municipalities that you are paying for, that we are paying for, simply with property tax dollars, with very limited tools and legislation to do so. So Jitvinder, thank you for bringing this up. Will you also bring this up and advocate on our behalf as a city to the local MPPs and MPs?
Through the chair, thank you very much for your question, and have some trust in local residents. I've been a vocal voice for so many social issues, and definitely we will discuss this matter with our provincial and federal partners, and we will emphasize on the key issues to be addressed. I think 2 pictures were there, was showing blocking the driveway. That was my driveway was blocked. It's not mine. I always speak for the entire neighborhood. If we have a problem, we always speak about everyone else. Definitely, there is work to be done.
Okay.
And that has to be collaborative between municipal, provincial, and federal partners together. And you guys have a great team at the municipal level, and you have a relationship with provincial. Definitely, as a resident, I will continue lobby for the
So
key and
Jitvinder,
important issues.
I'm happy to refer your delegation as part of the process of the investigation or the report coming back from staff dealing with short-term rentals and particularly Airbnbs. Understanding, just so you know, that you have the commitment from all of us and the city that we will use whatever municipal tools in our jurisdiction to deal with the issue. But sometimes, similar to RRL and other issues that we're facing, giving unprecedented growth in our city, sometimes it's provincial and federal legislation and lack of funding and support that is in the way for us to actually adequately deal with these challenges.
Definitely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Councillor Vicente, you're up next.
Thank you very much, Chair. Speaking to the referral, support that, and I guess this really underlines the concerns that were raised at the last meeting of council. And for council colleagues and for members of the public, we do have the legislation in place that would allow the city, if it finds that a short-term rental is not functioning correctly, if they're causing disturbances or issues in the neighborhood, for that license to be rescinded. So the motion was simply for staff to come back and report to us on exactly how it is that we can activate and enact that rescinding of the license for a short-term rental. Speaking just for myself, I don't have an issue with an Airbnb. I don't have an issue with a short-term rental operation. My issue is with the bad actors who don't operate them in a way that is seamless and that complements their personal goals to meet their financial obligations within their family, but it must operate harmoniously in the neighborhood. And so where we see that that harmony is not happening, we need to have the mechanism in place that is straightforward, accessible either to staff or to members of council to, as I say, hit that button and undertake to have a license removed when you do notice that someone is not conducting a property or operating it correctly. Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Chair.
you, through Chair. Just on a 30 second, I will just point out, resident property owners should be living in the property, and 180 days is the maximum limit. Property owners in this particular case is not living on the premises, and it has been partying every night, other night, and disturb like young girls. I also have a young daughter. we have a disturbance to walking on the street. And our street is a very active street. I think many people walk over at night time, in the morning. This is a very active neighborhood. I think Mayor Brown have visited, our councils have visited. We feel uncomfortable when somebody, you don't even listen when you're pointing out.
No. Thank you, Mr. Sodi, and thank you, Councillor Vicente. I have Deputy Mayor Singh on the board.
Yeah, so I've never really brought a case like this to council. The reason I brought this case in particular is because, how much have you called 311 to get this?
We have notified 311.
Yeah, over the
Yes,
years.
we have done whatever we could have done. We are exhausted. I have personally spoken to the property owner about it. Can you please control this in a mannered way? We are not against the growth of the city. We are always supportive. We always be part of the growth.
And so this area, Gordon Randall, as you know, we know it quite well. But this house sticks out because it's being used as a party house. There's many rental units in Gordon Randall. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking specifically a house being used as a party house through Airbnb.
Yes.
So so long-term rental stuff, that's separate, right? These houses are bigger. They can accommodate residential units. We've approved many basement units in that area. This is a party house, and it's being used for weddings, and that's where we should really be having a banquet halls for. And so that's the main concern. So the referral back to staff is definitely connected to short-term rentals because that's a backdoor way to have these party homes, which is a concern, obviously. And we've seen that before in the state area. We made it on 6 Buzz News during COVID because the Airbnb house was also being used as a party house, and we had massive violations. So this house in particular, the reason I'm bringing it here is A, we've called 311 many times and it hasn't been addressed. Secondly, it's being parties every other day. There's a lot of weddings in this area, but residents don't mind if it's a one-off at the house. We
always support.
We have long weddings a week, but residents are very accommodating. But when it's every week, that's when I think residents draw the line. That's where we as councillors and I think as council draw the line. And you having Airbnb to unlock that for, I guess, the wedding industry, that's a problem. So I'm more than happy to refer it back to staff, and I hope we can address this. And I don't think it's part of I know we license short-term rentals as well. I don't know if they're registered or not, so we'll refer it back to staff and have them look at it.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor Singh, and I have Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just really quickly, I know that the report is coming back to see what we can do to remove the license that we supply. And I will forward the contact because obviously Airbnb or staff are listening or paying attention to what we're doing. So I want to make sure when the report comes back, what steps do we have for them to remove that property from their website? Because it's one thing for us to remove a license, but if it's still on their website, it's still going to get rented and we're still going to have that problem. So I just want to make sure that synergy is happening and happy to pass along the information to whoever it was that reached out to my office. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Keenan and Deputy Mayor Singh. Thank you to the delegate as well. Have a motion moved here on. Councillor Santos, you're back on the board.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, just a quick question to staff, and I don't know who might be able to answer this, but who is the government body responsible for overseeing Airbnb's legislation, short-term rental legislation? Do we know? Like, who actually legislates Airbnb? I know it's not the city of Brampton. I know it's not municipal. Would it be? Okay, so who would be responsible if there's issues related to Airbnb itself?
Consumer services or something?
Yeah? Okay. Just out of curiosity. Okay, thanks.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Santos. And with that, I have a motion moved by Councillor Santos that's on the screen here to refer this delegation to staff for review in the context of short-term rentals consideration. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, that motion carries. Once again, thank you, Mr. Sodi, for delegating on a very important issue that you're facing in your community. Thank you. Thank you. Our next item is item 8.1.1, a staff presentation regarding citywide hackathon from the Economic Development Department. Denise or Monif will be presenting here today.
Good morning, Mayor, Chair, and members of Council. Today, our Economic Development Team is excited to announce about Bram Hacks. Next slide, please. So we are hosting a citywide hackathon for our local post-secondary students, so includes students from the Toronto Metropolitan University, Algoma, and Sheridan, and students outside of these universities. They're more than welcome to attend as well, as long as they're from Brampton. And our hackathon is going to happen on November 8th to 10th at Brampton City Hall, including West Tower. And as you could see on the slides, these are our primary and secondary logos our marketing team has designed. Next slide, please. So the theme of the hackathon is transit and connectivity with a lens of sustainability, and includes 3 focus areas. So reducing environmental impact. So how can we aim to reduce carbon footprint? Enhancing mobility. How can we make Brampton an efficient place to commute? And equity and accessibility. How can we make public transit inclusive and accessible for everybody? And thanks to our key stakeholders, which includes recreation, transit, active transportation, youth engagement, GeoHub, equity, accessibility, and communications, they were able to help us refine our problem statement and our judging criteria, and they will also be present at the hackathon to judge and mentor. And Mayor and members of Council, you're more than welcome to participate as well. And next slide, please. So we have a formal agreement with Hackworks, who will be our execution partner. So they'll be building an application platform for our students and judges, and they'll be creating guidelines for team formation, and they'll be supporting with events logistics, but most importantly, they'll be helping us with the back end. And they do have experience organizing hackathons with other municipalities and the federal government, especially when it comes to traffic and transit themed ones as well. Next slide, please. It's not on the slides, but we just wanted to give a special announcement that Amazon is our leading title sponsor, and they'll be giving up to $10,000 in cash prizes. And as you may know, Amazon, they've been such a key, they played such a key role in our economy, but they get the chance to expand that further when it comes to entering the youth innovation scene. And also, I wanted to give a special shout out to our wonderful sponsorship team, Mike Mealy, Tara Hunter, and Jaden Peltu, and even rest of our hackathon planning team for securing this crucial sponsor. Thank you.
Thank you, Manav. I have Councillor Santos on the board.
Thank you through you, Mr. Chair. I love hackathons. I love judging hackathons, especially when they're hackathons with a whole bunch of young people. How many people have registered are we expecting for this hackathon?
That's a great question, Vice Chair. Starting next couple of weeks, we're going to open up our application, and we're expecting close to 200 students to participate.
That's amazing. And so the reason why I put my name on the screen is because Brampton Board of Trade is here. And coincidentally enough, I'm sure you know this, on September the 26th, they have a symposium called Brampton in Motion to talk about housing and mobility in Brampton, specifically dealing with congestion issues that the businesses and their employees face in our city and across the GTHA. What's interesting is that in follow-up to that symposium next week, you're having a hackathon to solve all their problems.
Right.
So I would encourage our friends from Brampton Board of Trade perhaps to encourage some of the corporations to attend the hackathon, because perhaps not only can our young people get some sponsors and some exposure with big corporations from the city, but also maybe we can find a solution to some of the problems that they're going to present next week.
Thank you.
That's a really good suggestion, Councillor Santos. You're right, that's very timely. That's a good plug for Brampton Board of Trade, which will be a participant in this hackathon as well. Thank you, Mana, for that excellent presentation. And quickly, just want to thank all staff that has worked on this for the last few months to put this together, to make this happen. It's great to see this happen. Cities don't usually do this on their own. It's usually external groups that organize hackathons. But it's good to see the city taking a lead on this and solving our civic problems using the innovative minds of our youth. So I encourage all members of council to participate. Please do let the Economic Development Office know if you're interested in participation, whether that may be as a judge or acquiring sponsors for this hackathon, or if you know any businesses that would like to participate in any way. With that, I have a motion moved by Vice Chair Councillor Santos to receive this presentation. All in favor? Any opposed? Seeing none, thank you, and that motion carries. Then we will move on to councillor question period. Are there any questions from members of council for the economic development section of today's meeting? Seeing none, we will move on to the public question period. Are there any questions from members of public regarding this section of today's council meeting? With that, I will pass the chair. Sorry, Madam Clerk, would we go to corporate services, or we are past that?
Through you, Chair, I think our next item is legislative services. We didn't have any.
It would be public works, no?
Oh.
Section 10.
Yes, we do have.
Okay, we'll pass the chair on to Chair of Public Works, Councillor Vicente, to chair this section of the meeting.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tour. Our next item was held by Councillor Tour, and it's item 10.2.2, staff report on a budget amendment for the Environmental Education Center, Animal Shelter, Center for Community Energy Transformation, and Post-Traumatic Growth Association in Ward 6. Councillor Tour.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. Just going through the report there, I just wanted some questions. There's questions for clarification. Staff is seeking a budget amendment of an addition of $2 million for this project. Can you clarify? Like in that report, it says it's due to the increased scope of work. What is that increase in scope of work?
Through the chair to Councillor Tour, there was an increase in scope from the time that the original budget was identified. That includes an increase with respect to the scope of work with the Environmental Education Center, the master planning of a new eco-park, the Center for Community Energy Transformation, and also a space for the Post-Traumatic Growth Association. So this increased cost has resulted in the need for this budget amendment.
Okay, with the, I don't know if this is a more question, maybe Councillor Palesh you could answer, because I know this is a project that he has been really vested in for a long time. I'm happy to see the new animal shelter will have the space in there, all of that, but just a question about the Post-Traumatic Growth Association, a space for them. Could you just expand on that? Because from our discussion at the Region Appeal, what I thought is this is something that's happening in Caledon.
Councillor Palesh.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair, to Councillor Tour. Specifically on the PTSD site, I think it was, so this had started before Peel underwent that property way up Highway 9 and 50, which is, yes, a provincial PTSD site, not specifically, but really supported by and talked about for war veterans. And it wasn't clear at the time, and nor still is it still clear that a PTSD site like that would also help support all of the other first responders as well. Now I think we're kind of hearing that it is there, but still a very far distance. This PTSD site specifically, there's a number of organizations, Canada House I think is one of them, that really just need a square box to be able to bring people in and help support and have talks and discussions and education. So that PTSD site is it really has not much bearing on the overall scope of the dollar amount. I'll explain to you why the dollar amount has somewhat escalated. Going back to when we were talking about an animal shelter and didn't have a specific site, $3 million was needed in the budget for the design of the animal shelter. Along came, as all of you know, the education center that I've been working on for a very long time, and staff really wanted to bring that together. So at that time I said, you can have your $3 million, you can put the animal shelter at Siemens property, but you're gonna include the education centers in that 3 million as well. Fast forward to today, years and years later, staff certainly came to me and said, we can't get that done. We tried, and the money that's coming, the dollar amounts that are coming in from potential consultants it's not there. So it's the 5.5 million total is what we need to go out to RFP for this. I hope that clarifies. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Councillor Tour.
I'm on the board. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Palashi. That clarifies the questions I had.
Thank you very much, Councillor Tour. Would it be all right if Councillor Pleshy moved to receive the report and the recommendations? Councillor Pleshy. All in favor? That carries. Next, we have Councillor question period for this section of the agenda. Do any members have questions? Seeing none. Public question period. Madam Clerk, do we have questions from members of the public?
Through you, Chair, I see no questions at this time.
Very good. So then I will ask Councillor Santos to come on, and there are no items for legislative services?
No, she's moving it to me.
Okay, Councillor Pleshy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Legislative Services section. Our first item is the item 12.2.1 Staff Report Residential Licensing, Rental Licensing, RRL Pilot Program Implementation Update, wards 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7. We have Councillor Santos on the board. Councillor Santos.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First and foremost, a big, huge kudos and congratulations to all of the staff and to my colleagues on the task force, Councillor Power, Councillor Keenan, Mayor Brown, for this report and the incredible work that's being done with respect to this program. I can share that other municipalities through my work at FCM have reached out to me directly asking how we're doing this because they're facing similar problems with respect to residential rental units in their respective municipalities. Since we started talking about this with all of the media coverage around our work, residents have reached out and have shared horrific stories of neighbors. For example, yesterday somebody shared with me that one of their neighbors has 8 refrigerators inside their house because there are like 20 people living in it. This work that we've been doing on the RRL to deal with slum landlords in particular has been going on for a while, but it is only one tool that we've been using. We have been doing other things as well, and this is why I want to put forward an amendment to the recommendations in this particular report. We have an international student charter that we've been working on for years to deal with the quality of life for students coming to Brampton. We have had motions passed advocating to the federal government on student visa requirements and putting a cap, as well as requiring student visas to be tied to addresses. We have advocated nonstop to the provincial government to provide the municipalities with an increase in the heads and beds levy, where the municipality only receives $75 per student enrolled in an institution in Brampton. We have an unreported population of over 100,000 international students studying perhaps elsewhere, but we aren't even getting that $75 per student. That hasn't changed since 1987. So we've been advocating for that as well. We have been pushing on residential rental licensing to hold slum landlords accountable. Councillor Keenan has also put forward a motion regarding dealing with and trying to have us catch up to the ARUs that are being constructed, perhaps illegally, in Brampton. And now we're begging the province to give us the permission to deal with that issue accordingly. The next report on this agenda is talking about unlicensed contractors who are actually building these units for owners, and we're trying to deal with that particular issue. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that we're trying to deal with this immense pressure of a housing crisis where there are some slum landlords who are completely taking advantage of the situation. And municipalities like Brampton have such limited capacity and limited jurisdiction to deal with things like overcrowding and regulation of ARUs. But ARUs are part of our housing target because the province and the federal government have said municipalities shall allow ARUs to be part of the solution to address the housing crisis. From our perspective, when you take a look at all of the work that we have been doing to address the consequences and negative impact and folks, landlords who are trying to exploit and rip off the system, from our perspective, we are trying so hard in every toolbox that we've got municipally through enforcement, hiring more enforcement officers to deal with those consequences. But there is still some provincial and federal legislation that is in the way, including funding, that is not paying for it. So we argue that ARUs are part of growth. We have ARUs in the city because we're not building enough new homes yet in order to accommodate the number of people who are coming into our city. It is growth. The question is, we do not have the provincial or federal legislation to help manage unsafe conditions in our city. And we also don't have the provincial and federal support in terms of funding to manage the ongoing costs associated with managing the situation. So I think what I would like to add, in addition to the recommendations that we have in the report, is I would love for our GR team and our comms team to package all together all of the efforts that the City of Brampton is taking, including all of our policy motions and the RRL, the visa motion, like the motions that we've passed to advocate on visas, the motions that we've passed on the heads and beds levy, so that the provincial and federal government know, with the election coming up, that the City of Brampton is doing everything we possibly can given the tools and money that we have, and we need them to also support us in our efforts, because 100% this is growth related, 100%. And again, through my work at FCM, municipalities are stuck in a corner to react to all the various loopholes and various other issues that aren't even necessarily in our purview to deal with. But we will react, as we always do. So if I sent a revision to staff to the recommendations to add to the report. So if we could just add that particular recommendation, in addition to receiving the report, that the city advocate to the provincial government to fund programs like Brampton's RRL, whereby its costs are directly related to growth by helping to track, regulate, and prioritize the safe development of ARUs to address the housing crisis. Certainly, I think the provincial and federal orders of government would not condone the City of Brampton allowing illegal or unsafe conditions for people to live. And what we are doing as a city is putting the systems and processes in place to ensure that, yes, ARUs, yes, but they must be registered and landlords must be licensed, because residents deserve to live in safe spaces and not fire traps, and they also deserve not to be exploited because of the housing crisis that we face. That's the amendment to the motion, and then I believe we're dealing with the notice of motion next.
Okay, I think the clerk's office captured that. Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Santos. You've pretty well covered everything. I don't think there's much more to add to that, but I want to take the opportunity to thank staff. I want to thank our bylaw team, Fire and Emergency Services, for the outstanding work that you're doing out there. It is being noticed by the community, so thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. We know that this is not something that we're taking lightly, and we know that you're not either, so I appreciate your efforts. We know that we're in a marathon and not a sprint. We know that it will take time to see the implemented changes. So again, I just want to thank everybody, and let's just keep up the good fight. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Keenan. Councillor Tour.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. I have a few questions here to ask. Off the report specifically, it says that we have 2,063 RRL business licenses. Out of these 2,063 business licenses, how many of these were already registered ARUs previously?
Through you, Mr. Chair, I would invite our bylaw staff to come up and address that. Thank you.
Through the chair, Councillor, at this point, we don't have that breakdown, but we can absolutely get it for you. It's an easy enough query, we just don't have it right now.
Okay, I believe that should be part of the report. Like if we're touting this report to be a success of the program, I think we need to show that if it's unlicensed ARUs, unregistered ARUs that are now coming into compliance, or is it existing registered ARUs that are just simply coming into compliance through the RRL process?
Sorry.
Yeah, through the chair. I'd suggest that the majority of licenses that have been issued now are pre-existing registrations, because that is a requisite prior to the issue of the business license. So as the program continues to uptake, we anticipate that more of the licenses will be issued as a result of new registrations as well.
Okay, so that's what my thinking was, that these are already legal units that are simply just following the RRL process. This is not really a change of like unsafe or illegal units that are coming into compliance through the program.
Through the chair, just as a clarification, we will look into that.
Yep.
It may be that that is the case, but they would have first moved from being illegal to becoming an ARU and then in the RRL. So we'll see what that time gap is, if they've made that leap all at once or whether it's an existing that is transitioned.
Yeah, I think that's a very important piece of information that should be part of the report. Only then can you measure the true success of this program. Without that, it's just simply compliance into a new program. Thank you for that. I see that there is a table here that has a breakdown that there is a total of 8,700 registered ARUs. Out of that is where we are getting the 2,000 whatever number for the RRL registration. So they first have to be a registered ARU and then come into RRL, right? So what's happening with the remainder of like the 6,700 registered ARUs?
Through the chair, we're continuing our education and enforcement efforts to bring everyone in compliance with the program.
How many of those 6,000 are currently in the application stage of the RRL process?
Through the chair, I can't give you an exact number, but I can indicate that the processing of the licenses are pretty much up to date. There is not a significant backlog of people in the application process.
Okay, so there's, even by registered ARU numbers, less than 25% of them are right now coming into compliance under RRL. With that, I would ask then, I saw the press conference on Monday where we're saying that the RRL is a massive success. How are we measuring that? Like, how do we know it's a massive success if less than 25% of the ARUs are coming into the RRL program and majority of the ones that are coming through the RRL program are already registered ARUs, like previously compliant?
Through the chair, I'd respectfully just note that we had a very limited time. We've reached that 25% mark in a very short period of time. And we anticipate that that momentum will continue, especially with the new efforts undergoing in our continued enforcement and education.
So do you think that having a press conference and touting this as a success is a bit premature then? It's only been 6 months in the process.
Don't answer that question. You can direct it to somebody else. You can't ask staff that question. You can ask somebody else.
That is a fair question, staff. I'll ask them my next question then.
You can bring up comms if you want.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll have my next question then, to comms then perhaps then. Is it standard procedure for us to have a press conference touting this report before we even receive it, like 2 days before we receive it?
I don't see comms here. I don't see communications here, Councillor.
I have Commissioner of Corporate Services here.
Yeah, through the chair, I wouldn't have that answered.
Okay. Okay, if Mayor Brown would answer that question, then please. Thank you.
Happy to answer that.
Mayor Brown?
I called the press conference I promised that we'd give an update on the progress of the RL. We had a number of groups in the media interested on how it was going, and I'd like us to give progress updates on a regular basis. Obviously, there's been interest in this. If you look at the average city press conference and the coverage it generates, this was one of the highest generating in terms of interest. Housing's a hot topic right now, and so obviously, and some of the incidents we've heard about recently where Brampton was being maligned for us allowing this to happen. Obviously, there was significant stories, the global one that was trending on an incident in Peel Village, the allegations of prostitution, and so we had a number of press inquiries that really suggested we should have a press conference. Instead of me just hosting the press conference, I asked members of this task force that was initiated by Councillor Power, Keenan, and Santos. And for me, the measurement of success, and I do say where it's being implemented right now, it's been resounding success. One stat that stood out for me was that there was 43 of the worst properties where we had the highest number of complaints that are now compliant. I'm sure if there's 100, I'm in 100 WhatsApp groups in the city, and I bet you in every WhatsApp group there's one slum landlord in every neighborhood. The fact, it's going to take some time, but the fact we've been able to deal with 43 of those slumlords, maybe there's 100, maybe there's 150 in the city. 95% of landlords are good landlords. What we're dealing about is those few bad apples that ruin neighborhoods. When I went to the town hall with Councillor Medeiros and Keenan, 500 people angry about the few properties in Peel Village that was ruining their neighborhood. When I went door knocking with Councillor Santos, it was that one property. And so I understand that 63% of the ones that were not compliant have been brought into compliance for the wards where this exists. My hope is we'll get to 100% of those worst offenders. I would note, though, sometimes there's confusion if you think an ARU is legal. It might have been legal at the time that it registered. Part of the beauty of RRL is it gives us a chance to inspect. I go over to our old fire chief, Bill Boyes. That incident we had last year with the very dangerous fire and a large number of students in a basement apartment, that was a registered unit. And so, not RL, ARU. And so the ability, if you get 10 complaints, to actually go in and make sure that it is brought into compliance, what we see is that people will play the system and they'll get a legal unit and then they'll alter it greatly. And the good landlords say, come on in, we want to show you that everything is done up to fire code and building code. What RRL exposes is the bad apples. It gives us the tool to force the bad apples into compliance. And so I think there's a lot more work to be done, but I think it is not lost on me that we've made progress. The media might have called it a major success. I don't think that was actually in our comments. It was not in my comment. I said we have a lot of work to do, but we're making progress. For those in the media that and I think it was Gurpreet Malhotra from Indus Services and others that praised the success on CBC. But I'd say I still think this project is in its infancy. We've got a lot of work to do, but it's a lot of positive signals, and that's why I called the press conference to have a progress update on the RL.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. You have more, Councillor Tour, you have more questions?
Thank you, Mayor Brown, for sort of answering that question. I still do think it's premature to call a press conference on a Monday when the report is before council on a Wednesday. Maybe we can do it the Monday after council receives the report on a Wednesday. Just have one additional question here that comes from, is just the language around the polling that was done at the town hall, where 7,000 households participated. It says 83% of survey respondents indicated strong support for the city's effort to crack down on illegal residential units in Brampton. I think it is a little bit misleading to say that because 83, when you look at the poll, the question there, 83% of the people responded that we should be taking action against illegal units, which I think enforcement is doing a great job of. But I don't think it is specific to the RRL program, but the way we use that language here in this report, it makes somebody reading it believe that that is the case, that 83% of the respondents support the RRL program. So I would just note to be mindful of that language as well, and maybe that could be corrected in the future.
Any more questions?
Oh, that's all. Thank you.
We're good. Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Tour. Councillor Santos.
Thank you, through Mr. Chair. I disagree with Councillor Tour on some of these points and issues as a strong supporter of the work that we're doing with respect to the RRL, in particular the press conference. So on the Wednesday meeting before the press conference, it was shared, the ads were shared, and we were discussing the RRL. I had finally publicly shared what social agencies have been sharing with me for many years related to the international student charter work that we've been working on, whereby international student girls are being prostituted for rent. And as soon as I mentioned that and I framed it in that way, my staff will tell you, I will tell you, so my social media inboxes will tell you that media wanted to talk to me about the issue and talk to me about what we are doing to help address some of the issues related to slum landlords on top of the ongoing complaints that I receive in the neighborhoods that I represent related to unsafe conditions, property standards, etc. The other thing I'll point out is that the public agenda with the report on it was on the agenda, I believe, on Thursday or Friday, so we were getting media inquiries about that as well. And so from my perspective, having the press conference on Monday to be able to share the work and the implementation work that we've been doing on the RRL was perfect timing. Otherwise, I would have to continue addressing the media who are already asking such questions. So I'd like to say thank you to the mayor for calling that press conference and answering many of those questions. In addition to that, every single weekend, almost, I get WhatsApp messages, social media messages, and flags about protesters of a handful of landlords who oppose the work that we're doing to hold landlords accountable. And I get ongoing media questions about that. In fact, on that same day, they decided to have another anti-RRL protest to kind of distract from the work we're doing. So ultimately, I respond to my residents and the work I've been doing, and we've been doing on the International Student Charter to deal with the exploitation, particularly of international students. And so I think that the press conference timing was actually very timely. And the reality is that the city of Brampton is doing something to address the issue. And when the mayor posted some of the media coverage online, some residents are saying it's about time. Where were you 10 years ago? And so, where were you 10 years ago? Why didn't you do this sooner? It's about time you're cracking down on this. Too little, too late. And so, while some of the results of 200 licenses have been issued over a short period of time, is that a success? Personally, for me as a counselor, absolutely it's a success because we're doing something. We're doing something, and the option to do nothing is not an option. The reason why we have been able to hire 38 new bylaw enforcement officers was to support the increased workload related to RRL, related to illegal truck yards, related to other issues that the city faces. And so I 100% am proud of the work that we're doing to address the issue. One final note I'm going to add here is, in addition to the amendment to the recommendations in the report, as I had shared, I would like to also include in our advocacy efforts to put everything in one package. So I would like to share with the provincial and federal government about the work we did to advocate on capping student visas, on tying student visas to addresses, on our work to increase the heads and beds levy, this RRL work that we're doing, the motion coming forward regarding unlicensed contractors, the motion that's coming forward regarding overcrowding and dealing with illegal group homes and lodging homes. Because when we go to advocate to AMO, we go to training colleges and universities and say we want to increase the heads and beds levy. They don't actually see the bigger picture and the impact that the city is dealing with in relation to this growth pressure and an unreported population of 100,000 students in our city. I look at Heidi and I look at Alex. There's a reason why the city of Brampton has unprecedented growth in transit ridership. There's a reason why we are leading in Brampton with growth ridership in the country is because we have an unreported population of students who use it. And that is an indication of what we're dealing with here. So if we could, in our advocacy efforts, just paint a big picture. I know Chris, Ether, and team are listening in, and Jason Tamming's listening in. I want to paint the big picture, put it all on one page, so that the provincial and federal government can not only see all the work that we are doing within our municipal toolbox to deal with it, but also some of the barriers that are in the way, provincial legislation, federal legislation, and also funding and lack of support in order to deal with this unprecedented growth and the challenges that we face.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Does the clerk need any clarification?
Through you, Chair, if I could ask Councillor Santos if you would have a look at that last couple lines of the motion as amended. Does that capture?
I would put actions undertaken in other related areas. Yeah, in other related areas. And I'm pretty sure that Chris and Jason will understand what I mean by that. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Santos. Councillor Keenan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And, we're going through this and we're talking about the success of the program and how many people have signed on and what the numbers are. But a lot of this, too, is property standards. So not necessarily people just inside. It's the way that the properties look. It's the garbage, the refuge, the overgrown grass, the properties that are being really run down in these areas. This is also part of the RRL and what we're trying to fix. Those numbers aren't on here to say that this is how many, lawns we made them cut or garbage that got picked up. So the success for me is not just about how many homes we have signed up. It's about our proactive enforcement when it comes to property standards, when it comes to upkeeping our properties and having people living in dignified neighborhoods. That, to me, is a success. And I know when in Peel Village, there was a proactive enforcement was done, and there was quite a few in that area. I want to say there was, don't quote me, I will ask for the number, but I want to say there was 70 property standards, either citations or warnings or whatever, people to come into compliance for just the property standards aspect, whether they might not even have been rentals, but in this case, just the property standards aspect of this. So when we look at the numbers and the success, we really need to look at it for everything that we're doing for those communities, and that's a big part of it. So I don't want that to be lost in this conversation. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Keenan. Mayor Brown.
Just one point of clarification that Councillor Power reminded me of, and that is that there may be 8,000 ARUs citywide. The pilot project is only in a limited area of the city, and so the fact you have that many people joining the RL in a limited area, I'd love to see if there's another report, not just the percentage of ARUs in the city, but the percentage of the uptake in the areas of the city, because it's not 8,000 in those 5 wards. I'd be surprised if it's even half of that. So I'd love to see that information. So thank you, Councillor Power, for asking for that clarification. The other thing I want to say is that Brampton is a big city. It's a big city, and there are different neighborhoods. And the way we've set this up, I think, is very respectful of the different nature of Brampton. We've allowed those that want to be part of it to be part of it. Those that don't want to be part of it don't have to be part of it. And so in the East End, where there are very large estates and multi-generational living, there may be a different dynamic than there is in a Peel Village, where there are smaller lots and a real problem around, academic institutions. And so I think in council's wisdom, we found a balance that works for a city that's not identical. Not every neighborhood is the same. Not every ward is the same. And I think part of the success of the RRL is that it recognizes the different natures of the city. And so thank you, Councillor Power, for asking me to make that clarification.
Thank you, Mayor Brown. We're getting into another round here, so we'll keep an eye on everything and make sure that this doesn't explode into back and forth. Councillor Tour.
Thank you, Councillor Palashi. No, I'll be really quick. I just wanted to clarify, it does say in the second page of the report here that to date, in these specific wards, there are approximately 8,704 registered ARUs and 800 known or alleged properties with unregistered ARUs in the pilot wards. So wards 1, 3, 4, 5, and 7, the total is 8,704, which is what I quoted, which is correct. Thank you.
Oh, thank you, Councillor Tour. Councillor Santos.
Thank you. I just wanted to, because I forgot to mention one point that is important to highlight. In order to actually get a license, an RRL license, you actually first have to be properly registered as an ARU. So they are one and the same. So even if we were to look at the number of licenses issued, you can't get a license without first being registered. So that's a prerequisite to getting a license. So all licensed RRLs are registered units. You can't really separate the two.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. Councillor Tour.
I'm just responding to that because that's referring to a question I had asked. I understand the prerequisite is for it to be a registered ARU to be a valid RRL like a holder. But my question more specifically, which I think Bala understood, is how many of these units were already registered before we introduced RRL program? How many of them came into registration since the program has started? That's the numbers I'd like to see come back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor
And that could
Tour.
be just an email to me. I'm not requesting any report.
Send it to all members
of us.
Yep,
Yes, please.
all
Thank you.
members, please. Thank you. There's nobody left on the board. Someone move the chair be heard.
I'll move.
Thank you very much. I'll be really brief, try and be as brief as possible, but I do wanted to say, I've been doing surveys a long time before council, and never have I ever seen this type of engagement until Mayor Brown was elected in 2018. So, kudos to Mayor Brown and council for increasing such a massive 87% engagement rate. It's usually like from the world where we came from, the private sector, 18 is what you're kind of looking for. And that's a really good number. So 87% is a huge number. Of those surveyed, 83% of households, the strong majority of residents in the city of Brampton want something done and want us to do something about it. So, I've sat back and looked and watched, and I really didn't want to be a part of it until all of the bugs got cleared out. And I'm happy to say, staff have done a remarkable job. And I'd really like to amend this this motion to include wards 2 and 6, but specifically, I really want to go to pillar 1 of 2 and 6. So really back to the basics, where everything there was a start, and then there was a hold, and then there was a restart. To work out any kind of bugs. Those I think are worked out, and I really want the community engagement and the public education for wards 2 and 6. I want to start this for the RL. It's very clear to me in talking to any of the residents. Enough is enough. The questions that I received right off the bat is, why didn't you do it from the beginning? And I think it was just because it was a huge undertaking, and staff certainly came to came to light, put on the belt, and did such a remarkable job. We worked out some of the bugs, I think, and so now, I think we're in it. So I would like to amend that motion to include Ward 2 and 6, to start with the Pillar 1, and then maybe if you can come back to Councillor Brar or myself prior to the proactive enforcement, if we can have a chat specifically around 2 and 6, and next steps from there, I would appreciate it. And I think Councillor Brar is in support of that as well, and she's online, and she's the next speaker. So that's all I have to say. Councillor Brar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Councillor Paleshi. So when we're looking at the RL project, every pilot project, it's never perfect. No pilot project is perfect, and obviously we have to make tweaks. We have to perfect it, and then that's why it's called the pilot project. And looking at everything, obviously we do feel it's important to consult our residents, and I think that's very important for us, making sure our residents are heard from wards 2 and 6. Like, we see different sides of it, but I think we want to make sure our residents are comfortable with the program, but also if there's tweaks here and there, then their actions. Hello? Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. I think I heard Councillor Santos. Is everything okay?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, yes. So basically making sure wards 2 and 6, their considerations are heard loud and clear. And sometimes, I know we're making the pilot project, but sometimes our residents are the ones who are going to be facing it. And also there may be little things here and there that we can probably make it easier for them. So I think my only other concern that I was looking at was, hello?
Councillor Brar, we can hear you loud and clear. Whatever's happening is happening on your end.
Perfect. I think I could just hear a little chatter, so that's fine. So I think one of my questions, maybe I can just ask that question for staff, is what are the rules and regulations of subletting of landlords and tenants to move out? So I think that was a question that I do hear in wards 2 and 6, that if they're having problems in coming into compliance, how as a city can we help them?
Yep, Councillor Brar, that's the next item on the agenda.
Oh, perfect. Then I'll speak to that at that time, but thank you so much, Councillor Paleshi, and consultation is very important for our wards again, and we'll be happy to support that.
And Councillor Brar, just on that, we should reword the amendment here, and I was talking to Councillor Keenan, and he put forward a good point that maybe we should have a framework that come back for 2 and 6 to be taken into the RL program process, starting with Pillar 1.
That introduces 2 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
And I think, can I include that when the pilot project is completed, that we can have these consultations ready from our wards? Is that, from my understanding, is that what we're going to be going further?
I don't understand.
So from our consultation that we're doing right now, are we waiting for the report to come back when the pilot project is completed, or are we thinking of getting the consultation prior to the pilot project being completed?
I think we need a framework for wards 2 and 6 and start the community engagement and public education. Community engagement, public education is always a plus and a bonus. And then at that time, yourself and myself meet with staff and discuss next steps.
Perfect, thank you.
Excellent. Councillor Power.
Thank you, and through the chair, I really like that amendment that you've done. Is it possible that I could tack on Ward 8 into that as well?
I'm definitely happy to support that, Councillor.
Thank you.
That's all I see. Councillor Tour.
That amendment there, what is Pillar 1? If you could just clarify that.
Pillar 1 in the report is community engagement, defining the project scope, objectives, and deliverables. Public education, education and outreach campaigns, collaboration with external partners. Pillar 1.
Thank you.
Very welcome. All in favor? That's been moved. The motion by Councillor Santos as amended. All in favor? That carries. The next item was the one that Councillor Santos brought forward. I don't have it on my, was the 12 point, this one. 12.3.2, notice of motion addressing unsafe overcrowding and subletting of additional residential units, ARUs.
Thank you.
Councillor Santos.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Chair. So as we are going through this incredible process with residential rental licensing, folks are doing inspections and neighbors and residents are reporting in the various issues, even more so now, so that we can get a grip on where some of these rental units might be. One of the things that is coming up is this issue of overcrowding, and Councillor Brar also alluded to it, which is subletting of units. And in talking to some of my colleagues, Councillor Keenan, Mayor Brown, as well as city staff, we've been now trying to deal with the issue of occupancy limits. And because we now have a system in place to identify what is inside a registered unit through the ARU process. And now we have an annual licensing process in place that is holding landlords to account. What I found is that in the Residential Tenancies Act, it does share that landlords, through very specifics within their lease, can actually limit or provide denial of their tenants to sublet. Let me describe the situation. So enforcement is doing their inspections. They see a house and they inspect a house, or there's a fire and there are 20 people living in the house. That is actually no longer necessarily considered an ARU situation. That is now likely an illegal group home or an illegal lodging home. And so what this motion is saying is that as we're rolling out this process for RRLs, when we see illegal lodging homes and illegal group homes who actually need to abide by a different set of regulations and need to be licensed in a different way, including zoning restrictions, that we need to enforce, find a way to enforce those illegal lodging homes and those illegal group homes, number one. The other thing that this motion is addressing is the issue of overcrowding and subletting. And Councillor Brar brought it up, saying, what can we do to help these landlords deal with situations like this? Number one, many landlords don't necessarily know that they could help themselves by making sure that in their lease, they provide the restrictions before getting the tenant to actually sign on. And in the lease itself, I've been speaking with planning staff as well as enforcement staff on this. In the lease itself, if the city can share with them what a lease would look like for a tenant and a landlord to abide by the RRL program and the ARU program, that document alone would help them deal with issues at the landlord-tenant board and tenants who are violating their lease accordingly. And so with respect to overcrowding and with respect to illegal group homes and lodging homes, this is the motion for staff to take a look at and report back. Various recommendations, including occupancy limits, given the process of ARU registration and RRL, and also staff report back on how we can actually deal with overcrowding and excessive subletting through the RRL process. That staff report back to identify and enforce existing legislation regarding illegal lodging and group homes. And again, an advocacy to the federal and provincial government in order for us to help cover some of these costs and have the appropriate legislation, including the work and advocacy we're doing to increase resources to the Landlord-Tenant Board, and forwarding this to inform local MPPs and MPs as well. One final thing that I just wanted to point out is actually in the whereas clause. If we could just move up here to the whereas clause, Madam Clerk, if you could scroll up. Because this is a point that Commissioner Ganesh pointed out. which is very important. Number 6, which says the city's comments to the province on Bill 185, Cutting Red Tape to Build More Homes Act 2024, we highlighted as the city the need for the province to consult with municipalities on safety, environmental, and community impacts related to the enforcement of ARUs. Question to the Commissioner, has the province responded to that as of yet?
Through Chair. No. Through the Chair, through to you, Councillor Santos, there has been no consultation from the province with the City of Brampton to that effect.
Okay. Thank you, Commissioner. And so, again, as part of our advocacy process, these issues that the City of Brampton is experiencing locally and reacting to locally and using property tax dollars to deal with locally are actually many issues that have been downloaded from other orders of government. I'll certainly be bringing this up at my board meetings at FCM this coming week. But again, we need to create that advocacy package to the provincial and federal government to let them know that Brampton is reacting to these problems and they have yet to even respond to our advocacy efforts with respect to enforcement of ARUs. And I think Councillor Keenan is seconding the motion.
Thank you, Councillor Santos. We don't require a seconder, but we'll take that under advisement. Councillor Brar.
Thank you so much through you, Mr. Chair. So I guess my question, and just kind of curious to know, just for our information, what are the rules and regulations of subletting at the landlord and tenant board so that they can align with our city and just making sure that we can process that easily?
Through the chair, the rules around subletting are governed by the Residential Tenancies Act, and the Residential Tenancies Act does generally allow a right for subletting, subject to an approval by the landlord.
Thank you. So thank you for that clarification. So through you, Mr. Chair, so I think what I want to say is how can we make sure that the provincial government and the municipalities work together so that subletting, it can be conflicted. So at the provincial level, they're allowing subletting, but then at the municipal level, trying to control it. And I think we need a way of how we can control it. I could see the advocacy part here, but just want to get that clarification. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Brar. Councillor Keenan.
Sorry.
No, say sorry.
So just to Councillor Brar's point, we know that that is a massive issue of people coming in and subletting. And I'm not sure when, but we had passed a motion to write a letter asking that they prioritize those issues here in Brampton. And I'm not sure if that was sent or where that stands. Can anybody answer that? Okay, well then I just asked it. If no one can answer right now, that we find out where that's kind of sitting. If it has been sent and just no response, or we just haven't sent it yet. But I think that's along the lines of what Councillor Brar is trying to accomplish, which was done quite a while ago. We should just see where it's at. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
For sure. Thank you, Councillor Keenan. There we have it, the motion. Councillor Santos.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
That's okay.
So with respect to occupancy limits, just to respond to Councillor Brar's question, in the Residential Tenancies Act, and staff will report back on this as well, it does say that landlords can refuse subletting based on property capacity limits or other legislation. So that's where the RRL and our registration of ARUs and the process and system we're putting together here in Brampton, it's an opportunity for us to actually influence some of that legislation regarding subletting. I'll give an example. I was speaking with staff as well earlier this morning. In hotels, there is an occupancy limit per room. You can't have 20 people in a room in a hotel, right? So now that we have this system in place with licensing and registration of ARUs where people are submitting drawings of how many units they're going to have per house, why could we not apply the same type of mentality based on fire code
of occupancy limits similar to hotel room occupancy limits. Those are things that I think staff will look into, and perhaps Steve or I guess Commissioner Boyes, if you have any comments around that.
Through the chair, no comments at this time. We'll just take that as direction.
Perfect. There's no other questions. Been moved by Councillor Santos, seconded by way of solidarity from Councillor Keenan. All in favor? That carries. Our next item is 1222. This item is the addressing unqualified contractors, repeat building inspections and additional residential units held by Councillor Keenan. Councillor Keenan, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And first, I want to start off by thanking Deputy Mayor Singh for really spearheading this, in a timely fashion, at a time when it's really needed, and we know that these issues, as we've seen on the news, are quite significant. So thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. I just, some of the numbers that I read in here are pretty staggering when it comes for, which really brings to light the reason that something like this is needed. And it goes beyond the pictures or the videos that we get sent to us or see. It says here that over the past 5 years, the building division has conducted on average 148,957 inspections for approximately 4,900 ARU applications. That's an average of 31 inspections per application. That's outrageous. And that just goes to show that the people that are building them don't really know what they're doing, which is why having valid contractors in the city of Brampton doing the work in the city of Brampton is so important. And seeing those numbers is staggering, and the recommendations here, love them, and thanks to the commissioner and the team for putting this together. A couple questions. Based on reading the report, it seems that we already require contractors to be licensed. Is that correct in saying?
Through the chair, the report does reference the business licensing program and requirements for contractors, HVAC, plumbing, and electrical. And of course, when permits are issued, our inspectors do look at whether or not those working on site are licensed. And right now, we are in a position whereby we're looking to ensure that all of them are licensed, to everybody from the GC right down to the subtrades working on the site.
Right, so GC right through the subtrades would be licensed through the city of Brampton. So they would have to come in. What would that process look like for a subtrade to do as a plumber?
Through the chair, I'll defer to my colleague in Legislative Services to walk through that business licensing approach, and then we also have the CBO here to speak to any details if council wishes.
Okay.
Through the chair, Councillor, it is extensive for each one of those different categories. I could read through the bylaw. I'd suggest it'd probably be easier to send you the council the briefing as to what it is.
Okay.
It is broken out in our licensing bylaw.
Okay. So it's fair to say that every trade that works in a home in the city of Brampton, including the GC, needs to have the license from the city of Brampton.
That is correct, yes.
To my next question would be, what is our process then in ensuring, and if we go to a site and they're not registered or licensed to be a contractor in the city of Brampton, what process do we have to A, shut that down, B, revoke those permits? I know those building permits, I know that's not an option, but I'm asking the question so that the public know, like, what can the municipality do in this case? Because if we can't do anything, nobody's going to come and get a license, right? So what is the ramification for doing that? Is there a stop work permit until people come into compliance? Is there fines that are given out? What is that procedure?
And I'd need to defer back to...
Through the chair, on this one, I'll defer to the CBO to walk through that process, from everything from inspection to what happens when we find, say, a bad actor on site undertaking work.
Good morning, Chair. So building inspectors are involved with the various stages of the inspection and the construction of the ARUs. Certain tools that we have is to communicate with our colleagues in bylaw enforcement to let them know that certain contractors are working on a site that they don't have the license. But unfortunately, through the Building Code Act, we're very limited on what we can do when we face a contractor that's not licensed. If they're unqualified and they're causing a type of a construction that may impose safety concerns to the resident of the house, there's certain tools that we have that we can issue certain orders to stop the work. But when it comes to unlicensed contractors, unfortunately, there's not much that the building inspector has in their pocket to deal with that. So that's why we have to defer to enforcement and bylaw and coordinate with them to be present on site with the inspectors from building to ensure that that contractor is either through means of getting educated and aware that there's certain procedure to get the license, or potentially moving to the next stage, which would be, I guess, issuing fine.
Who provides the stop work order?
If you're talking about pertaining to the building code, it would be us, but that would not be related to someone who's unlicensed. So stop work order gets issued when a construction is happening without the benefit of permit, despite us giving them warning not to do so. That's when we're going to issue stop work order as per Building Code Act to make sure there's no further construction.
Okay, 'cause I'm still struggling to find where our teeth are. We can ask them to be licensed, what can we do? I think that's the biggest question, is what can we do? And I think that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking for you come onto site. Like, I'll give you an example. 13 Caledon Crescent in Brampton, the construction was all over the news, it was ridiculous. Just yesterday, Enbridge was there because of the construction they did. They broke a gas line underneath, that nobody knew about. It was broken underneath the earth, which could have been devastating to that entire community. And based on meter readings, Enbridge found out that something was happening there, came out to investigate themselves, and this is what they found. So I'm going to ask again, and if we don't have it, let's figure out how we get it. How do we stop contractors that are not licensed doing the work? Sorry.
That's okay, it's just in the mic, it'll echo.
I know.
Sorry, through the
And I know it's not you, but I need this. These are the answers we need. It's one thing to write it on here that this is what we can do, but we actually need to do something.
Yeah, through the chair, maybe I'll start and then pass it over to the CBO. I think, to council's credit, you're doing quite a bit already of the right things. And the last discussion around more proactive enforcement, which is referenced in this recommendation, tied with our building department, is the first step that we need to move towards this. I was talking to the CAO yesterday about this report, and I was reminded of, those of you can recall that TV show Chips, where you had two police officers on a bike who would kind of do proactive enforcement. And I'm not suggesting we go to that drastic measure, but certainly one model we may want to look at is with increased building inspection staff, perhaps, combined with the new enforcement officers that we have sort of a dual enforcement, proactively looking in, and we have the data to show where these hotspots are, just to try and proactively curb construction from getting to a point whereby it's already well past the point of resurrection, and then notifying the CBO to take measures under the Ontario Building Code.
Yeah, okay, so I think there's obviously some work to be done on how we can tie these two together to make sure that we're actually doing something and we're not just writing things down that we can't really have teeth to enforce. I think it's going to be very important, and I don't know if that's changing a bylaw, if that's adding a procedure to, if you can, to the way the permit is issued, that they have to list their contractor. I don't know if we're allowed to do that or if we should be doing that, but something like that needs to come to the table, because I think that's the only way we're going to get somewhere with these fly-by-night contractors.
One, if I could, through the chair, the report also referenced us taking a proactive approach to implement the recall inspection fee that we currently have in the building bylaw of about just shy of $112. And that's an immediate tool that we can start to work on fairly quickly. And I think once we put the word out on the street, no pun intended, that Team Brampton is going to be using that recall inspection fee, it'll start to change the behavior of those bad actors who are unqualified to get them into qualified and licensed.
Yeah, so that's where I was going next after I ranted about how we stop them from doing the construction, is to get them educated. We see a lot of hours here, 148,000 hours in 1 year associated to re-inspections, which equals, if you give me a value on what the taxpayer paid for that.
Through the chair, and I'll defer to the CBO if my math is wrong on this, but if you were to average roughly half of those inspections being repeat inspections, it comes out to $14,800,000.
Wow. That's a staggering number. You know how many affordable housing we can build for that kind of money? We just need the right contractors building it. So it's once you start to hear the numbers, you see the importance of why we want to, maybe slow down the ARUs until we can get a grasp on getting them built properly. These are big numbers that the taxpayer paying. So not only are we paying for having all these inspections, they got to live through the bad people that are doing it, and then they got to live through the slumlords that are renting them out. So this all ties together. We don't have one problem to fix in this little category. We have quite a few. And I think the more we dive into it, the more it becomes apparent what it is that we're actually trying to do and why it's important that our other levels of government get on board and help us with some of these issues. So I would ask that, if that's already a stipulation that we can be charging for those things, that we don't go out and do a solid or a favor. We got to come out, we charge. The taxpayer should not be paying additional money for bad people doing construction. That's all I need to say on this. And again, thank you, Deputy Mayor, for bringing this forward.
Thank you, Councillor Keenan. I will be speaking to these reinspection costs and providing a little bit more clarity on that after. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, and I just want to thank the Contractors Association who brought this to me as well. We started doing this with driveway windings, with licensing them. And it was something I had talked about when I was doing media about the driveway windings. There was requests from individuals when I was taking calls that we look at doing it for general contractors as well. I was a little bit nervous, I'll be honest, but because the association came forward themselves asking for it, made it easier. So I'm happy to see the education and awareness piece, because it just has to be known that we're going to take this step. And then we'll bring people into compliance, and then obviously some enforcement tools, whether that's fines or whatnot. But what I would say is that, I had the opportunity to tour wards 9 and 10 about driveways with David, and that went well. But it's still, we're noticing that contractors are not following, and I hate blaming the residents. If the contractor says it's okay, they're naturally going to test the resident. They're not going to challenge the contractor as the resident sees them as authority figure, that they would obviously know the driveway rules. So what I would say is, once we do this as well, that we take enforcement seriously with both, and bylaw put some resources towards it, because I have some disaster stories about contractors as well with residents, and sometimes they're leaving the job, not completing it, and you just feel bad because in some situations, it's not a big landlord, it's their only house, they live in the house, they might be retired. The most devastating case was a retired individual, a single retired individual, and the contractor just up and left. And so if we have tools to control licenses for stuff like that, if there's a certain amount of complaints or whatnot, I think our residents would be happy with that. Sorry, Steve, if you want to say something.
Yeah, through the chair, if I could, through the Deputy Mayor, just on that, certainly what we've seen in Brampton is a surgence of the unqualified contractors coming in and underbidding, if you will, those who are qualified. And then hence why you're seeing some of these violations. And if I could, just 10 seconds, I'd be remiss if I didn't give kudos to all of the building inspectors who, Chair Paleshi and I have been out on site with them, and we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. And they go through just as much as our bylaw enforcement officers. And I would say that Brampton, our building inspectors have what I would say the best emotional and intelligence skill sets to deal with the bad actors out there, and they do their best to bring them into compliance.
Yeah, that is something I've noticed. That more experienced general contractors, the ones who have been doing it for a while, they actually speak highly of the inspectors and say that they follow. And they never have issues. It's the guys, that are like maybe illegal or trying to do it themselves, that they have more of the challenge. And that's the benefit of using somebody who's licensed. The only question I have is, say, is this just related to ARUs, or is this overall policy, if you're building a building, everything, that you have to be licensed? Because I could see some issues emerging with that.
Through the chair, I'll start and then defer to the CBO, but fair question. When I first read the report, I anticipated that question. So as you can appreciate, with brand new builds in a brand new subdivision, the contractors working on site are licensed because they're part and parcel of if you look at a spectrum of general contractors, they're on the more mature and educated side. The ARUs is the focus simply because that's where we're seeing the underbidding of home renovations and whatnot. But I'll defer to the CBO if he wants to expand on that.
Absolutely. Through the chair, Deputy Mayor, yes, as Commissioner Ganesh mentioned, yeah. So that's the bulk of the problems that we have in ARUs. And that's about half of the volume of the permits also that we are dealing on a yearly basis. So this is going to be the focus, knowing that that would be where majority of the contractors that are problematic are going to be operating within the city.
Yeah, just what's coming to mind is like somebody's doing a condo building, it might, you know, obviously different companies bid from Brampton and outside, and they're gonna naturally pick the cheapest, and then all of a sudden they have, you know, that could be the problem. But as long as we're focusing, that's where the request came from as well. As long as we're focusing there, I think it's in the right direction. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. We have no other speakers. Just briefly, the re-inspections, and I know we really want to, you know, have a less burden on the taxpayers across the city. But back in 2015-16, we were having problems with some re-inspections just to the point of inspector had to go back and look at a number that they couldn't see clearly on an I-beam, which was one item. And I think we've since cleared a lot of those up, and where I think inspectors now take proof of photographs, and there's all kinds of other ways to do stuff. So if we want to look at charging for the re-inspections, putting that back, I'm okay with that. But I just want to make sure that it's not like, you know, little things, like things that don't make sense for our inspectors to go back and have to relook.
Yeah, through the chair, absolutely. It's not the intention to be punitive, because if we were to be punitive in that fashion, you'd probably see an uptake in illegal construction happening. What we want to do is curb the repeat calls whereby these unqualified contractors are just calling for the sake of calling to almost get free training, if you will, from our excellent inspectors. That's where we want to legitimize the repeat inspection.
And if I may, through the chair, I can just say also, we're going to apply this charge after the second failed attempt of inspection. So they're going to have the first one that would come automatically as part of the permit application. We're going to give them another chance. And then after that is when we're applying this charge. So if any of those, we're hoping that it would be captured within the second inspection without them being penalized for it.
Okay. Thank you. No other questions. Councillor Keating, you'll move the staff report 12.2.2, staff report addressing unqualified contractors repeat building inspections for additional residential units, ARUs. All in favor? That carries. The next item was 12.2.3 was the staff report review of public nuisance bylaw in respect to car rallies, held by Councillor Santos. Councillor Santos.
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to refer this back to staff to report back to council next week. Spoke to staff already about this. It looks like the comparison between our bylaws with Vaughan, with the city of Vaughan, in many cases, the city of Brampton even has stronger bylaws with respect to.
I'm not sure we have quorum. Need one more.
No one's online. No one's online.
Councilor Barres.
Where's? Where's that music from the delegation? Are we good?
Yes,
Okay, so the comparison between what the city of Brampton is doing and the city of Vaughan is doing with respect to issues with car rallies, in many cases, the bylaws that we have in Brampton are even stronger than what they have in Vaughan. The one difference, though, in Vaughan is that they have higher fees when it comes to fines. They have higher fines with respect to violations to various bylaws related to car rallies. So in speaking with staff, I just want to refer this back to staff to come back to council next week with an updated list of fines specifically related to car rallies.
We're good? No comments from staff? We're good? No other speakers? Councillor Santos is looking for updates for that to come back. All in favor? That carries. Is next closed session? Any members have any questions? Seeing none. Is next closed session?
Sorry,
Anybody
through
from
you,
the
Chair.
public like to come down and answer? Well, you can answer it too. Ask any questions of anything related to the agenda under legislative services.
Through you, Chair, I have 2 questions received online. The first one is, many bylaw complaints are the result of overcrowding. Are we going to wait until there are 20 or 30 people living in these rentals before bylaw officers can finally address overcrowding and the impact on our community? The second question is, that first question was submitted by Jane Russell, Brampton resident. Kevin Russell, Brampton resident, submitted this question: when will landlords with overcrowded rental units be asked to pay their fair share of property taxes? That is all of the public questions.
Thank you very much for the questions. We have those on file. We'll ask staff to report back, and if staff can include the area councillors. Seeing no other additional items, we do have closed session. We'll break now. Closed session is a little bit big one. All 3 have been held. We'll break now for till 1:45. 12:45, we'll re-adjourn in closed session. Moved by Councilor Vincente that we adjourn now and go into We're good? We have quorum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We have quorum. We're okay? Welcome back, everybody. To report out from closed session, item 15.1, report New Brampton Transit Facility Ward 10, open meeting exception under section 2392K of the Municipal Act 2001, position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board was referred to council next week.
Yes.
Item 15.2, report legal advice regarding development agreements, open meeting exception under 2392F and K of the Municipal Act 2001, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose, and position plan criteria, procedure criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board. Direction to staff was provided. Item 15.3, report construction services to accommodate open office space reorganization meetings exception under 2392A and K of the Municipal Act 2001, the security of the property of the municipality or local board, and a position plan, procedure, criteria, or instruction to be applied to any negotiations carried on or to be carried on by or on behalf of the municipality or local board was referred to staff. Any questions? Seeing none, we're at the end of the meeting. We will move adjournment. Been moved by Councilor Vincente that our next regular scheduled meeting is Wednesday, October the 2nd, 2024, or at the call of any of the chairs. All in favor? Have a wonderful day, everybody.